I'm going to talk about what might seem on its surface to be a slightly boring topic, but it's also only going to last for about 10 minutes before we meditate. But I assure you that it's very exciting. And that's why I made the title, The Power of Journaling. And I'm talking about this week for a couple of reasons, but one of the reasons is you're supposed to be keeping basically a food journal this week for the internal challenge to write down everything that you eat. And I think that this is a great idea for many reasons. If you don't know what's going in, like I feel like most people, if you actually wrote down every single thing you eat throughout the day or throughout the week, and you look back on it, you'll be surprised by all the nonsense that you ate, all the extra stuff. You were like, I thought I was being so healthy. I ate all those salads, but then I forgot about all the cookies that I eat in between salads. But to be aware of what's actually going in and to be able to look back and recognize, yeah, I was feeling really good this day after I ate this, and the next day I was feeling really bad because I ate this. So that's helpful. And then maybe years later, you can look back on what you ate this week and kind of compare it to years in the future, and you can see what you had left over after Thanksgiving. The main topic, though, is not about writing down what you eat, just journaling in general. And I listened to this great episode of a podcast, this podcaster, Andrew Huberman, who is a neuroscientist. And he did an episode about a specific kind of journaling, which I thought was fascinating. And as soon as I started listening to it, I was like, this is something that I need to tell the students about. It's something that I have not done exactly in this way, and I plan on doing it at some point. But the evidence or the kind of results of the study make it super intriguing. So I do not remember the exact term for this kind of journaling, but the basic idea is you take the most difficult or traumatic event in your life and you journal about it. And for many people, this should probably be done in conjunction with, getting help from a therapist or doing something else in addition. But in this study, this was regardless of one's participation in therapy or anything else. It was just the journaling across the board was super helpful in dealing with this. And it was not just with the idea of being able to relieve trauma or get beyond trauma. That was part of it. For many of the people who participated in this study, it was not actually a what you would really traditionally call a traumatic event that they were writing about. It was more just like a difficult time or a difficult incident in life. And what they did was, so this was a study by Pennebaker and his colleagues, and they basically took people, and the final version they arrived at that had the best results was, for 15 to 30 minutes, you write down without stopping, without interruption. You just continually write, and you are writing about that event, that most difficult, challenging, or traumatic event. And you write down a couple of things, or this journaling should include a couple of different things. One is the facts about the event, which I think in general for most people, this can be a very useful thing to connect to in a difficult, challenging, or traumatic event or set of events, is the actual facts of what happened. Because for many people, when you start to connect what actually happened, or you start to recognize what actually happened, it can kind of take some of the power away that thing had on you, because so much of what is difficult about it is our response to it. But that's another part of what you write about, is how you feel about it, or how you felt about it in the moment, and how you feel about it now. And then the third aspect is how we can kind of draw connections to, or even lessons from, that event to where we are now, and also who we have been in the past, and who we are now, and who we want to become. So it's writing down the facts, writing down your emotional experience and connecting it to who you are and who you want to become. And what they found was if you did this once, it didn't have that much of an impact. But if you did it 4 times, and they found that it worked 2 different ways. You do it once a day for 4 days in a row, or you can do it 1 day this week, another day the next week, and do that for 4 weeks in a row, 1 day each week. Both of these work very well. What you find is that for weeks and months and even years later, that all of the people who did this exercise found that that specific event, they had much less stress about it, but also generally just in their life, they found that they had less stress. This is a kind of an incredible thing to last for years later. It's a really profound effect. And I think that anybody who has done a decent amount of journaling has had at least a taste of this kind of impact when you really become self-aware, and especially when you're able to connect to the facts, connect to your feelings, and start to recognize how it's impacted you and how you can kind of tie that into who you want to become. Whether you do it 4 times in a row or you've done it with that specific kind of formula, it can have a really profound effect on your just self-awareness, your recognition of where you've come from and where you want to go. But what they found with this is more specifically around the language used. There was a very interesting evolution that transpired from the first writing to the 4th writing. What they found was pretty much across the board that people, even if they started off with writing about this in a way that was very negative and really focusing on the traumatic impact and how stressed it made them feel and how all of it was negative, by the 4th writing, the 4th iterative of this journaling, it kind of flipped and it was much more positive. And of course, you could say like, well, these people just like, you know, decided to write more positive things about it. And for sure, that's true to some extent. But you could really read as you go through, and you can do this simply by just counting the you know, negative words and negative feelings and comparing that to the positive words and positive feelings, including, of course, the impact that it has had on you this far and kind of the lessons that we can take from these events in the past. It kind of flipped, went from mostly negative to mostly positive. And what they found is, and what they find in other studies is, that when we have more words that describe positive things, especially positive feelings and positive experiences, compared to negative experiences, if our vocabulary is actually weighed more heavily on the positive than it is on the negative, that generally these people are less stressed. And of course, there could be a kind of a reverse correlation, or the correlation goes in the other direction, where it's like, well, this person is less stressed, they're happier, so they have more happy words. Sure. But what they find is also, and this ties in with that, is it's less important to have that vocabulary and know those words as it is to actually use those terms in your writing, and then also just in your day-to-day life, conversations, or, you know, writing emails or whatever. And this seems like such a simple thing, and it truly is, which is why I think it's such a great thing to talk about and think about for us. It doesn't take a lot of you know, heavy lifting as far as it being complicated or complex. It's literally, you just write it out, write for 15 or 30 minutes without stopping, and then do that 4 days in a row or 4 days over a month. And by the end of it, you can go back and look at, you know, the difference in the language that you have used. But you don't even have to do that, because what will have happened is, by spending that time thinking about it, and especially that piece where we're trying to tie that experience to what we've learned and who we want to become, and how we can kind of use that to improve. We will have come out the other end feeling less anxiety and stress about that circumstance, but also just less in general in life. We've kind of flipped the script on that stress in general. And we start to get this positive connotation around stress and around stressful experiences in our life, and even indeed around trauma. So this very simple exercise, and they found that people just had to do this one time, the one round of 4 times. It made a lasting impact. Now, again, I'm not trying to say that you've had serious trauma in your life and like you don't need to seek help or have a conversation with anybody. Just write it out 4 times and that'll completely cure you. Unlikely, but it does seem from this study and studies that came after it that it's going to at very least have a very good impact on you. So one warning that they made is that this is going to be kind of a difficult thing to go through. You are reliving it. So if this is something that you know is going to be particularly difficult, again, you might want to have somebody to talk to about it as well. And whether you do or not, if you can get through all 4 of them, don't just write it down the first time. Sit, simmer in that kind of anxiety about it and negative feeling about it, and don't go through the next 3, because the next 3 is where the work and the progress and the positive outcome lies. So I encourage you guys to do this. And I encourage you to journal in general about anything at all, about what you're eating or whatever happens. Have a martial arts journal, have a meditation journal, have a dream journal. All that is great. But try this specific kind of journaling. And definitely do it more than once if you feel the need. But that 4 times in a shot is going to be what they found is the most helpful. So now we're going to meditate. This is going to be a longer meditation. While this stuff is all in your mind, you might find your mind going back to a particularly traumatic or challenging experience in your life. And if that happens in this meditation, don't turn that into a different kind of trauma and make this meditation a bad thing where you're beating yourself up by thinking about something negative. Just return back to the breath, let it go. And if you are thinking about the thing that you want to write about, because I'm sure that all of you guys, after hearing this talk, are just thinking, I can't wait to go home and start writing about my trauma. As you're trying to come up with the thing that you are going to choose to write about, you might go with something that does pop up in your meditation on a regular basis. If there's an event from your past or an experience that you had with somebody that kind of keeps coming back up, that is a pretty good indication that that could be something that you could spend some time writing about, whether you do this specific journaling exercise or you're just journaling about this thing in general. And what you might find is that if you can't let go of this thought or this experience in meditation, that by writing it out, you might find that you can set that aside and it no longer has the same kind of sticking power because you've processed it on paper in some way. So sit comfortably. Remember, good posture is very important, especially for a long meditation. And good posture can also have an impact on us mentally, emotionally, energetically. So having a good straight spine, strong posture can help us feel solid in our meditation. Close eyes. Have those eyes slightly upturned. Relax. Watch the breath. Let go of all thoughts, worries, and cares. Be here now. Let's start with a few deep breaths together. Start with all the breath out. In through the nose. Hold it for a few seconds at the top. And out. Nice full breath through the nose, using the belly. A few seconds holding at the top, and then a full exhale. In, hold, out. In, hold, out. In, hold, out. Last one. Finish with a double exhale. And now just let your breath do what it does. When your mind wanders, bring it gently back to the breath as many times as it takes.